Warning, this video contains spoilers for the Five Nights at Freddy's series. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Dr. Dex, and today we're tackling a FNAF mystery that has been gnawing at me for years. Who do we play as in Five Nights at Freddy's 3? Before we get into the theory, let me refresh your memory, because FNAF 3 feels like ages ago. The game takes place 30 years after the infamous murders at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The tragedy has become an urban legend, and the company called Fazbear's Fright decides to cash in on this. They open a horror attraction filled with goodies salvaged from the old pizzerias. As icing on the cake, they hire a seemingly random security guard to watch over the place for 5 nights. So far, so FNAF. Every single one of these games has had a faceless protagonist with deeper implications to the story. The thing is, Scott usually gives us some clues as to who they are. Just think of the paychecks in the first 2 games. In the third game though, our security guard is completely anonymous. Game theory assumed it was Michael Afton, also known as Mike Schmidt, from the first game. And I agreed with them until the release of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, which on the surface looks like a kid-friendly tycoon game, but is actually FNAF 6 in disguise. And to avoid any confusion, I will refer to the game as FNAF 6 from here on out. In this latest installment, you get to build your own mascot-themed pizzeria under the Fazbear Entertainment brand. Every day while the customers enjoy your awful pizza, you retreat to your spooky office to do some housekeeping. The catch being that you are surrounded by a maze that may or may not have murderous robots lurking in the shadows. These murderous robots show up in the alley behind your establishment every night after your shift ends. Your mysterious employer reminds you that you are contractually obligated to salvage these animatronics for parts. Of course, this being a FNAF game, they end up haunting your pizzeria. Luckily, whoever built this place has taken a page from Fazbear's Fright book, because you can keep the animatronics off your back by using sound beacons. What an odd and familiar detail. Okay, before we get to the meat and potatoes, I will give you one final warning before I spoil the end of FNAF 6. Alright, ready? Here it is. After surviving your last shift, you were contacted by your employer. And it's not another recorded message, he speaks to you directly this time. He reveals that this operation has been an elaborate trap. The 4 animatronics that now roam your halls are in fact the last ones standing. The maze surrounding your office has no exit, no escape. But before your employer cuts communications, he gives us the answers that have eluded us for so long. Your employer is no one less than Henry, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment himself. He and Afton started this mess together, and now they'll end it together.
This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
Then Henry reveals the shocking truth. The first victim, the puppet, was actually his daughter. While she was locked outside of Fredbear's family diner, her father's business partner killed her in cold blood. We've known about this murder since FNAF 2, but the fact that the child knew the killer just makes it even more disturbing. In a final act of penance, Henry burns your pizzeria to the ground, with him and you both trapped inside. Now, you might be wondering what any of this has to do with the FNAF 3 security guard. The answer is everything. This theory was sparked by Redditor Carnforth Ginty, and it fits so well that I had to expand on it. As we know by now, Scott uses new games to clear up misconceptions from previous installments. For example, FNAF 3 told us what suit the killer wore after the Golden Bonnie vs Golden Freddy debate back in the day. FNAF 6 is all about tying up loose ends, so I think what we're about to discuss was intended by Scott. Because I'm convinced that the night guard from FNAF 3 is Henry. Let's look at what we know about our seemingly faceless night guard. He seems to be aware of several older animatronics, which is why MatPat argued that it could have been Mike. Which is a fair point, because there are like 4 people in this entire series that know all of these specific animatronics. Phone Guy, who died, Mike, who wants to find his dad, and his dad would also know, but he's Springtrap, so that's off the table. That leaves only one prime candidate, the other co-founder, Henry. His motivations are easy to explain. He feels tremendous guilt over his role in all of these tragedies. He may not have killed anyone himself, but neither did he stop William from killing all those children, including his daughter. In FNAF 6's Insanity ending, he admits to lying awake at night, hoping Afton's victims aren't still aware inside of his old animatronics. He even implies that he considered taking his own life, but he couldn't without making things right first. He created the franchise to bring joy to children, but his creation only brought death and misery. Then he sees Fazbear's Fright trying to profit of his blood-soaked legacy. All that misery turned into a cheap horror attraction. So for the sake of all of those who lost their loved ones, for the love of the daughter that was taken from him, he puts a stop to it. Though instead of threatening legal action, he applies for a position as the night guard. During his shifts, he discovers what became of his old partner, William Afton. Afton got crushed inside the very suit that he used to take all of those lives. Like his victims, his spirit lingers inside of an animatronic suit. Consider it cosmic karma. Henry also learns that Springtrap can be led astray by the sound of children. What a novel idea. At the end of the week, the place mysteriously burns down, destroying another piece of the Fazbear legacy. Unfortunately, Springtrap survives the inferno, and as we know, he always comes back. So Henry takes everything he's learned and devises the ultimate plan to end it all. Which leads us to FNAF 6, where Henry lures Springtrap and the last animatronics into a maze that will be there too. I personally think the parallels are too strong to be written off as mere coincidence, especially knowing Scott. Now before we wrap this up, there's one more thing to address. If Henry was so eager to make up for his mistakes, where has he been all this time? FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after the murders. What took him so long? Well, I might have an answer for you. A couple of years ago, I made another theory about the identity of FNAF 3's night guard. Though that was back before William and Henry even had names, so I didn't have a solid identity. What I did have were clues, the biggest one being the 30-year time skip. Seems awfully specific, doesn't it? Then I considered something. What if our night guard had been in prison for the last 30 years? What makes you say that, you might reasonably ask. Remember way back in FNAF 1 where on some occasions we would see newspaper clippings pinned to the wall? It's where we first learned about the missing children incident. Well, one of them has the following headline: 5 children now reported missing. Suspect convicted. I repeat, convicted, as in charged for the crimes. But we know Afton is a free man, so who got arrested? Well, I'm no detective, but the owner must have been a prime suspect. He has access to all the animatronics and knows the pizzerias inside and out. If that case sounds a little thin, well, it is. But remember, we blamed Phone Guy for the murders even after we heard him die. With Afton hiding inside of his walls and possibly even planting evidence against his old business partner, Henry gets convicted for the missing children incident. Okay, so what does this have to do with the 30-year time gap? Well, I'm glad you asked. Did you know Scott Cawthon is from Texas? Did you also know that first-degree murder charges can lead up to 99 years in Texas? Now guess what the minimum amount of time served is before you're eligible for parole? Exactly 30 years. Well, isn't that a funny coincidence? Of course it's not. This is Five Nights at Freddy's. Now sure, there are arguments against this. Just because Scott is from Texas doesn't mean that's where the game takes place. Though people do tend to write what they know, so it remains a possibility. You could also point out that murdering 5 children would most likely land you the chair over in Texas. But remember that their evidence is shaky at best and the bodies have never been found. So even if they gave him the maximum sentence of 99 years out of spite, they could have let him go after 30 years of good behavior. Remember, Henry is innocent. He knows who the killer is, but he can't prove anything. All he can do is bide his time and try to keep his head down. We also know that Afton kills again after this, which must have raised some doubts around Henry's conviction. The police probably wrote it off as a copycat killer, but we know better than that. And now we know Henry has not been idle in prison, because once he gets out, he will stop at nothing to make up for the sins of his past. He burns Fazbear's Fright to the ground in an attempt to avenge his daughter. But when the purple guy survives, he sets one final trap. A trap that will rid the world of everything linked to the tragedies he helped create, including himself. And through Henry's self-sacrifice, the spirits that remain can finally be put to rest. Trapped deep underground, where memories sleep. Now let's hope they are never disturbed again so we can finally close the book on the Fazbear murders. Thank you for hearing me out on this one. I have been wrestling with this story for years, and I finally feel like I have all the pieces together. Ever since the first game, I have treated this like a murder mystery. Who's the killer? Who are the victims? What were their motivations? Over the years, I had lost faith that we would ever get the answers, but credit to Scott, he delivered. After years of tying loose ends together, we finally have a complete and satisfying story. I couldn't be happier that I can finally put it all together and share it with you good people. I hope you're just as happy with this conclusion as I am, and of course it's just a theory, etc, etc. If you have further questions, anything to add, or holes to poke, leave a comment down below. This has been a theory by Dr. Dex. Thank you all very much for watching, and have a good one. One.